Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm Tyler Waldrop, joined here with Tony Sukalis. We're here to talk about our 20 for 20 series once again. Today is day 8, I think. Tony and I had a little debate about that before. All the days are kind of blending together.
Yeah. I think it's Monday, right?
Yeah,
That's that's something.
should
Okay.
be, could be Monday. So we made y'all wait about a week, but we're finally going to get to the question that everybody wants to talk about. Who's going to start at quarterback for Alabama next year? Tony, who do you think?
I think, especially without having a spring, I really think it's going to be Mac Jones. I think my answer would have been Mac Jones regardless. But now that we don't have a spring camp, I don't know what we're going to get for in terms of what the preseason is going to look like, how many weeks they're going to have to prepare, what that's going to be like. Is there going to be, a chance for them to meet uh, as a team, even if it's non-contact? There's a lot of things that are up in the air, but
Mhm.
I think the limited offseason definitely advantages Mac Jones. And then I think, just what he did as a quarterback over 4 starts is enough in itself to really kind of help him cement that job.
Yeah, I definitely, if Tua finishes the season and Mac Jones is just kind of the starter, or maybe the guy who plays against Tennessee and even Arkansas, I feel like this is a more even competition. But with Mac, getting to finish out those last couple games, especially the Iron Bowl, the bowl game against Michigan, that's a lot of reps that Mac Jones got with the first team, and that he wouldn't have gotten otherwise. And now Bryce Young missed the spring. I kind of agree with you. I think Mac Jones has got to be the favorite for this job right
Yeah, and just look how well I mean, there's nothing he could have done more
now. Mm-hmm.
over those 4 starts, in my opinion, to prove his worthiness as a quarterback. I think I have the numbers right here. If you were over the 4 starts, right? His average 293 passing yards, 3.25 touchdowns, zero point 0.5 interceptions. And he did that against good defenses. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
at least two of them were good defenses. I mean, you look at Auburn's defensive line; it's one of the best defensive lines in the nation, and that was coming at him. Michigan had a top 10 uh, pass defense, and he tore that apart. So if you were to take those numbers that I just said and multiply them by 13, um, he would be at 3,809 yards, 42 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. I mean, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
So those are Heisman numbers, and that's something we talked about last week. So um, I think it's really his job to lose.
Yeah, and if you watch that Heisman video, you know that I'm not quite as high as Tony is on Mac Jones. I don't think that he's going to be a real Heisman contender next year. But that's not to say that I don't have faith in Jones being able to win the job and be productive. Especially when you've got guys like Waddle and Devontae Smith that you can throw to. I do think that 3,000 plus yards and what did you say, 40 something touchdowns? That's not
Yeah,
impossible.
42 is if you went by the average of what he was throwing over those 4 starts, it would be
So
42 over 13 games. So that's assuming
yeah,
that he makes the SEC championship game as well.
so I'd,
And
I'd
assuming we play 13 games.
I'd maybe scale down and lower my expectations a little bit to maybe the high 30s. But I mean, yeah, those numbers are great. I think if Mac Jones finishes with over 3,000 yards and 35 plus passing touchdowns, I don't think fans are going to be unhappy with how he played.
Oh, definitely. I mean, yeah, I think uh, you say that, but I think those numbers, 30 mid 30 touchdowns is good. It also depends on how Alabama wants to use them.
Mm-hmm.
Are they going to run the ball more if that's the case? But um, he can't. There has to be a level that Mac Jones is going to perform to, because the other guy in this competition, Bryce Young, he comes in with a whole lot of talent as well. He was the Gatorade Player of the Year in California. He's a dynamic dual threat guy that can do it with both his arm and his feet. I think he's really the future uh, at this position. He's going to be able to take over when Mac leaves, and so he could make a run for it if Mac's not sharp. And I think having both of those guys together is really going to put fire under both of them and kind of force them both to play at their top level.
Yeah, and I mean, talking about just playing at their top level, we were kind of down on Bryce Young because he's not, working with Alabama's coaches and the players, but he's working with some pretty good guys. When you talk to his dad, I think he's working with Juju Smith-Schuster from the
Right.
Steelers.
Yeah, he's throwing to Juju Smith-Schuster, throwing against Derwin James and some other NFL players. I know Mac is also throwing to NFL players as well. So they're both taking care of what they're losing, I guess, in the spring. I don't think that's something that,
Mm-hmm.
from a physical standpoint and from a prepared standpoint, I don't think either of these guys are going to be lacking. I'll have a story this week um, about Mac Jones and how he's handling it. I talked with Bryce Young's dad a couple of weeks ago, and obviously he's handling the off-season restrictions as well as he can as well. I don't think it's going to be a case of either of these guys, you know, being unprepared for the
Mm-hmm.
moment. So I think it would have been a good competition, and it still might be a good quarterback competition, but it's just going to be really hard to take it away from Mac Jones,
Mm-hmm.
given what he's already shown. And I don't think that, because I'm saying that, it's not a knock on Bryce Young at all. I think, Alabama's in the best shape at quarterback than any other SEC team. I think you could make an argument that Alabama has at least two of the best five SEC quarterbacks on its
Mm-hmm.
roster, and you maybe even go higher than that. Um,
I mean,
so they're in a good spot regardless.
yeah, and you're kind of touching on this a little bit in a roundabout way, but I mean, it's not like Bryce Young is just being asked to come in and prove himself as a true freshman. To get the job, he has to beat somebody out. It was pretty incredible when Jalen Hurts came in and won the starting job as a true freshman. But then he didn't really have to beat anybody out. There was no incumbent to take the job away from.
Right, and I think, no offense to Blake Barnett or Cooper Bateman, but when you look at the level of talent in front of Jalen, I think it's
Mm-hmm.
a lot different than the level of talent um, in front of Bryce. I think Mac Jones, uh, put it this way, I think if Mac Jones was playing at this level back in, what was it, 2016,
Mm-hmm.
I think he holds on to the job over Jalen Hurts. Uh,
Yeah, and I mean, to just think back, Tua came in freshman year, and we saw a lot out of him in the second half and blowout games. But Tua didn't take the job away from Jalen, so we've kind of seen that there is at least a little bit of a veteran advantage that Saban's going to give these guys when they've already established themselves.
Well, and of course, I mean, just you want to go with that guy that you can trust. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, any freshman is going to make some mistakes as he acclimates himself to the college level, where it will start to it's whether or not the risk outweighs the reward. If Bryce Young comes in and just sets the world on fire, then yeah, you're going to put up with a couple of the
Mm-hmm.
freshman errors that he might make, especially if Mac Jones is not performing to his full level. Another thing we haven't talked about is the possibility of maybe having special packages for each. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I think Mac Jones's athleticism gets undervalued, but he obviously doesn't have the same elite
Mm-hmm.
mobility that Bryce Young has. Perhaps you could create certain packages that, to really catch defenses, off guard. That might be a way to kind of get Bryce Young into more games. I think there's no question about, both of them will play to some certain,
Mm-hmm.
aspect. I think we saw that with Jalen and Tua, that they'll find a way to get both of them into games. But I think it'd be interesting to have certain packages for Bryce to get him onto the field to maybe, and he's definitely not just a guy that, when he's onto the field, oh, that definitely means they're running with him, or, he's only running the read option. And he's a guy that can sling it too. So I think that there's a lot of different kind of really cool things you could do. I'm kind of excited to see how Steve Sarkisian manages that, and if we do get to see some exciting wrinkles out of the offense this season.
Yeah, if y'all watched our A-Day video, which we put up over the weekend, just us talking about the who might have won the MVP for the A-Day game, and just players we missed out on seeing. We both agreed Bryce Young as a guy that we wanted to see this spring, and it sucks that we missed that time to kind of just to watch him and really figure out where he really does factor into this quarterback competition. But we've gone on a long time about a guy that we haven't seen a single practice of yet, and we haven't mentioned Talia yet. And I wasn't covering the team last year, so the extent I have of him is what the fans have, what they saw from the Arkansas game, some other games where he came in at sort of the end, especially down the stretch, and then the A-Day game where he was inconsistent. Tony, what do you sort of think of what you've seen out of him in practice and games? Is he going to factor into this competition?
I think he's in an interesting spot. Definitely the pressure's off of him. Oh, look, we waited and until now to talk to him, and just in this conversation, I think most of the talk has been about is it Bryce Young or is it Mac Jones, and he's a guy that still has talent. He looked pretty dynamic when they played him a little bit. I think it was in the Arkansas game, and then also I think he threw his first touchdown pass in the game before Auburn. So yeah, I mean he's a guy that he has the same kind of pocket escapability as his brother. I don't know if he's necessarily at that level that Tua was in when Tua burst onto the scene at Alabama, but he's definitely a guy that we saw what he could do in high school at Thompson High School. He basically tore apart Alabama's passing records for high school ball.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's kind of playing with like nothing to lose. I mean, there's not a lot of expectation on him, and he's a guy that can kind of sneak up on some people.
Yeah, and I think it's strange. I don't think we would have thought about this when he committed to Alabama and signed. I don't think we would have imagined that he would just kind of fade into in the background almost. He's the unspoken guy in this.
Right, I know. And with the name, with the Tagovailoa last name, you almost thought that he was destined to be the next guy, and we were just going to have like this string of Tagovailoas, and possibly we still may. I mean, I don't think you take obviously that family's like a family of winners, and so I don't think you take him lightly. So throw him in there with a chance to do something. You never know what's going to happen. Let's say it doesn't work with Mac for whatever reason. The same reason why we're saying that with with the argument for Bryce. Let's say it doesn't work out for Mac. Who's to say that they don't throw in Talia first, or maybe he separates himself. Maybe Bryce Young gets off to a slow start and in the college level. I mean that can happen to anyone. So there's possibilities. I personally think it's going to be Mac's job, and I personally think that there's a little bit of separation between Mac Jones and Bryce Young, but I don't think you should just throw away Talia's chances at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I keep going back to the Talia's first 8A game, and just there was the terrible interception he threw, and then there's just what in my opinion was a great touchdown catch. Just two very Tua-esque throws, just on both sides of the spectrum. Just watching, he didn't throw it very much, but I could see the fearlessness that sort of allowed his brother to have all those incredible throws like 2nd and 26, and then those terrible throws that came back to bite Tua from time to time when he would kind of try to force one.
Right. I mean, and I think one of the things we got to watch it too is that we don't just compare him only to his brother as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the things I think maybe he'll have to struggle. He might struggle with, or he just, I don't want to say overcome, but there's this shadow cast by his older brother that he's gonna have to live up to Tua or not. He's gonna be his own quarterback, and he's a little bit different than Tua. I mean, he throws with his right hand, not his left hand. Not exactly the same passer. So it'll be interesting to see how he develops for himself, and the identity he makes. It'll be an important year for him. He didn't get to redshirt last year, so he will be a sophomore. It'll be interesting to see how much he plays. Perhaps, I mean, we've seen Alabama. Let's just say he doesn't take over the job, but if he only plays in 4 games, who's to say he doesn't redshirt this year? I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but that's another possibility as well.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we've talked through the options, and I think we agree that it's going to be a pretty interesting race to watch. But again, we've kind of reached a consensus point. We both think Mac Jones has got this job. He's going to be the clear-cut favorite, at least for this time. But, Tony and I have been wrong before, and we want to know, do y'all agree with us? Do y'all think Mac Jones is the starting quarterback of the future for Alabama? Do you want that? Would you rather see Bryce Young maybe win the job in the fall? So comment and let us know. Do you want to see someone else? Do you not think it's one of those guys? So just comment, let us know what y'all think. And while you're on the page, definitely make sure you've liked the video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to the channel so you can keep up with us. We're doing one of these videos every day during our 20 for 20 series. So with that in mind,
and make sure you have your notifications on as well. It's a good way to make sure that you don't miss out on any of our content.
Yeah, absolutely. Catch us, catch Bones recruiting updates. Those are important. I know y'all want those. But anyway, thanks for joining us today, and check back tomorrow for the next update in our 20 for 20 series.